I'd just like to say a really big thank you to Emma Fischer for joining me. My name is Shane, and it's lovely to meet you, Emma. And I've just watched your movie. Actually, I've seen it twice, and we'll get into that. But thanks for joining me from all my way.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Hello from the future. I love saying that when I'm speaking to people from another part of the world. It's now like about a day ahead of you. How was your day yesterday?
My day yesterday was pretty good. I sometimes, you know, when someone asks me, oh, what did you do yesterday? And then suddenly you blank and you have no idea what you actually did. But I think it was good. Yeah. And how was your day today?
Thursday in Australia is New Movie Day. So I start very early in the morning and just talk movies pretty much for about 6 hours straight. But I love it. It's favorite day of the week.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's only just Thursday's just started here, so we'll see how the day unfolds.
Thank you very much for joining me. As I said, I know that you're probably very busy, and I've seen your movie The Deal, which is a new film, a couple of times now, and I think I got a little bit more out of it the second time. It's you play a character who can fix anything, pretty much. Are you like that in real life? Very handy?
No, especially not when we shot it. I've become more handy and more sort of DIY-y since the pandemic because I just had a lot of time.
Yeah, right.
And so since then I've become a bit more kind of, interested in DIY and fixing things. But Annalyn is mainly an electrical engineer, and that stuff, I don't touch that because I don't want to die prematurely. So no, I'm definitely not like her in that sense. Yeah, no, I don't have that many other skills other than acting.
Really? Okay, well, all right, well, I'll start with that. Why are you acting? Was it something that you started when you were very young? Was it something you were into? How did you start becoming a performer and actor?
Well, when I was really a lot younger, like a kid, I did ballet, and I was, I wanted to become a dancer, basically. I wanted to become a ballet dancer. Yeah. But I was told pretty quickly that that was never going to happen. So, but I loved performing, and I think acting was then sort of not the next best thing, but something else that would, creatively fulfill me and get me in front of the camera or on stage or whatever. And then I joined the school drama program, and the guy who was leading it at the time was just an amazing guy and like really creative, and we did some awesome things with him. So that's kind of how it all started. And then I came to London to go to drama school, and then that was it, really. Been acting ever since.
With your accent, was that something you had to work on? Because it's quite convincing during The Deal.
My American accent, yeah, I suppose I've been working on it my whole life. So when I was shooting it, I didn't actually have to do any work. It sort of almost became like second nature. Okay. And before I moved to the UK, I had sort of more of a mid-Atlantic or transatlantic accent anyway. So it was more familiar to me than maybe to someone who's grown up their whole life in the UK. So yeah,
How do you think you'd go with an Australian accent? I believe that's a very hard one to do.
I have dabbled in it because I actually have family in Australia.
Oh, is that right?
Cool. I also have, and I have a few mates who are from Australia, because a lot of Australians end up in London.
Exactly.
And and so I think, once I've had a couple of pints, I maybe would have a crack at it. But I think, in front of a public, I don't know if I would be so keen to do it. I think it's nerve-wracking doing an accent that isn't your own. And you have to, if you have to do it convincingly, you have to do a lot of practicing. So it's not easy.
Well, I think if you're happy to have a few pints, you and I would get along very well. I enjoy a beer every now and then.
Sure. Yeah, me too.
How did you get the role in The Deal? Was it something you had to audition for? Was it a long process? Can you talk me through it?
It actually wasn't a long process at all. I did have to audition for it. I did a tape for it with I went in to see the casting director and did a tape just with the casting director first off.
Yeah.
And then I think about I'm not quite sure how it happened now, but I think I very quickly heard that they wanted to see me again, but because the producer was coming from the States and the director was coming from Hungary, and they all had their own schedules, they kind of had to wait a little bit before they could both convene in London to come and see the people that they wanted to see again. So it was about a month after that I had the recall, and then it was like over a weekend I had one recall sort of day with Somali, who plays Tala, my mother. Yeah, and then the next day they got me in to read with a couple of gin options. So it's basically a chemistry read. And I read with Taz, who ended up playing Jin.
Yeah.
That was it. And then I think a week later I found out that I got the job. So it was actually quite a quick process, the whole thing.
Well, congratulations, because you're on the poster. It's a lead role and you show so many emotions like during the process of the storyline. We don't want to give too much away, but there's a mother and daughter relationship there. How did you get along with Somali? Like, did you meet her beforehand? Did you have a chemistry read? What happened there? Because it works.
Well, I guess so Somali is also a producer on the film.
True.
So she was there during the recalls in her capacity as producer, but also in her capacity as co-lead.
Yeah.
And so I sort of had a chemistry read with her in the sense that my recall was with her and we were both on screen together. So I met her then. Sorry? You
were on screen a lot together. It was great chemistry.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I mean, so that's when I met her. And then I didn't see her again until we all got to Belgrade. And then I think, so she's based in LA and I'm based in London. So I actually haven't seen her since then. So it was sort of like a 6-week intense period where, you know, we kind of almost lived together and saw each other every day. And then I haven't seen her since then. We've been emailing and stuff, we've been in contact, but yeah, I haven't actually seen her, which is kind of bizarre, but yeah.
You wear the same clothes pretty much during the whole movie. How many outfits were there of the same clothes?
I think I had 2 or 3 pairs of the trousers and maybe 2 of those like vesty tops.
Yeah.
And one of them was more dirty than the other one, I think.
Yeah.
But then so there's one scene, again, I don't want to give too much away, of course, but there is one scene where we end up in the water. And for that was a nightmare to shoot because obviously you get completely wet and then you don't have 3 hours to dry off and then shoot it again. So, you know, there was like frantic costume changes, put the dry one on, put the wet one in the tumble dryer, quick, redo the hair, redo the makeup, go. So that was a weird experience. But yeah, you always have to have doubles or triples of any costume because just in case something happens to one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
The stakes are high.
Oh, like, tell me about it. I mean, there were moments in this where it was like an action film from a dystopian future. Do you think this is like a bit of a warm-up for future roles? Would you like to keep doing action movies, or, you know, like, what else do you want to do in the future?
I mean, 100%. I
can
loved
tell.
it. I loved doing, first of all, I just love sci-fi and dystopia as a genre.
Yeah.
I really like reading it, I really like watching it. So it follows naturally that I would enjoy doing it as well. So I would 100% be up for doing more of stuff like that. And of course, like, you know, people like Michelle Rodriguez or Charlize Theron, like they're just such like badass female action stars now. And yeah, 100%. And Claudia Black, of course. Oh my God, how can I forget Claudia Black? #1 fan.
Australian Claudia Black.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, 100%. Should I say 100% again? I think I've said it 3 times.
You can keep on saying it. That's fine. You are the only character that drops the F-bomb in the entire film. Was that a scripted line, or did you just say it and it worked?
No, we actually had a joke about this throughout the whole thing that started during the read-through, but basically I think it's PG-13, the film. Am I right in saying that?
In Australia, our classifications are different. So it's a rated M. It's rated M down under.
What does that mean in terms of like, what's the minimum age?
15 and under.
Okay, all right.
15 and above.
I think, yeah, okay. Well, I think in the States, and here it's PG-13, which is parental guidance under 13, and then above, I actually don't know what it means. But, and basically if you want in the States, they're super strict about swearing.
Yeah.
And if you want your film to get a certain rating, you only get 1 F-bomb, and I think you get 4 shits or something like that. So the joke was always, you get more shits than fucks. And I was very pleased that I got the 1 F-bomb because it's my favorite swear word. And yeah.
Were you aware of that, or did that just come out of the blue? Like, was that something that was set up for you?
It was scripted. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in real life, you swear a lot. You're very liberal.
Yeah, I try not to be too much, especially in professional environments, because it's not that attractive. But I do swear a lot. It's a good release of energy.
Of course. The movie's called The Deal. Is there any deals that you like to do? Do you go to the shops and get bargains? Are you up, what's your deal of the century? What would you love the most to get a deal with? A holiday, clothes? If you could have a deal on anything, what would it be?
That's an interesting question. Probably a holiday, but a really big one, like world trip, you know. Any flights that take you all the way around the world, and then you can go traveling. I've never done that. I never did the whole traveling thing. So I think, just free flights for life. That would be awesome. Yeah.
Well, that leads me to a question I was going to ask earlier, but got sidetracked. Australia. Yeah. Have you ever been to Australia? Is that something you'd like to do if you haven't done it?
I have been to Australia. You'll be pleased to know. But not to the East Coast. I've only been to Perth in WA. Okay, cool. Yeah, because that's where my family lives. And so I've been there actually quite a few times, but not the East Coast. I've never been to Sydney or up the Gold Coast or anything like that. I'd really like to go to Melbourne and Sydney if I ever get the chance, but it's quite far.
It is. We are in another hemisphere. Would you be prepared to film movies down here, attempt to maybe make a career down here if that was an opportunity that arose?
I don't know if I'd be, I think I would definitely come and film something there. Absolutely. Yeah. Not sure if I could make the permanent move over there, mainly just because my family, apart from the family that does live in Australia, but they're my sort of extended family, my close family live in Europe. So I think I would feel a bit too far away from them if I moved to Australia. But I mean, it's an absolutely gorgeous place and I love the weather. So, if I got the opportunity to shoot something there, I would definitely take it, especially if it was with Claudia Black.
I'll keep that in mind. The next time I talk to her, I might drop your name. Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to mixing it up with your roles, do you look ahead and see what's coming up, or do you just leave it to a manager to select what certain roles that you get? Because it's so hard now, probably, to book movies of a certain description. You can get a lot of streaming movies, but are there other movies that you can maybe test for that you haven't gotten?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, actually, because my lifelong kind of aim was to do more comedy.
Okay.
Because all the roles that I've done so far have been quite dramatic. And as you say, in The Deal, again, not to give too much away, but we had to go to some pretty dark places, and there was a lot of, you know, a lot of pretty heavy themes that were being addressed. And while that was really fulfilling creatively, I also because comedy is just a completely different skill. It's still acting, but you need to draw on different things somehow, and it's much more about timing. And so that's always what I wanted to do. And actually, I'm really pleased because I got a job that we filmed earlier in the year, and it was a rom-com. And I've never done a rom-com, I've never done a com, I've never done a rom. So that was a completely new thing. And it was really fun to do that. So I'm kind of hoping that, you know, looking to the future, I can sort of sit on the fence and do a bit of both. Because I don't want to be pigeonholed just like as a dramatic actor or as a comedic actor. I'd quite like to be able to do both. So that was, I think, that would be my ideal future, I think.
So rom-coms work and they stand the test of time if they're done right. Would you like a traditional rom-com or something a little bit more obscure?
Definitely, I think the one that we shot was commissioned by Hallmark, which is sort of your classic romance channel in the US. But it wasn't written by an American, it was written by an Irish woman. Okay. So she has that kind of, you know, obviously Irish people aren't British, but you know, we all have a similar sense of humor. So she kind of got that kind of more dry, a bit wacky, deadpan kind of humor. So it's not like your typical Hallmark film. And also it takes place in Scotland. So actually, apart from myself, no one's American in the film. Okay. So I think, I mean, you know, would I do a more straight rom-com or regular or a more obscure one? I think I would do either because I just like to work. And if the script's good, then I'll do it. So yeah, I'm keen to just work, to be honest. I'm not that fussy yet.
Are you allowed to say the name of the Hallmark rom-com that you're coming up in?
So I think so, yeah. It's called Love in Scotland, which that's pretty much advertising exactly what it is. That may have been a working title though. I'm not sure. All right. But possibly it's going to be called Love in Scotland. Yeah.
I'll keep my eye out for it, and I'll make sure I have a few handkerchiefs or tissues nearby because I am the worst. When it comes to rom-coms, I will cry. That's just something I do. I take things very seriously.
Did you cry during the deal?
Well, again, I don't want to give too much away at the end, but yes, there was a moment where I thought something was going to happen, and then it sort of circled around and did not. Speaking of that, did you film alternate endings, or was it always going to be that one surprise ending?
It was always going to be that. I think if we'd had alternate endings, that would have been, I think we would have gone way over budget. Because it was a smallish budget. I mean, not a tiny one, but and no, there was just that one ending. I mean, the script was written. It's funny actually, because when I auditioned, the script was very different from what it ended up being. Okay. So I auditioned with a script and thought that was going to be what the film was, and then I got to Belgrade where we shot it. And there was a script lying on my bed in the hotel, and I opened it and it was completely different. So I was like, oh, okay. So I had to, you know, spend 2 hours just reading it and then getting my head around it. And it was a lot more slower paced and a lot more built on the relationships between the characters, and it became much more of an action film. So there's a lot more action sequences in the film as it is now than originally written. But
well, that's interesting you say that, Emma, because I really don't think there was that much action in it. It was more of a slow burn drama, emotional, and with a few payoffs. Obviously it had action scenes, and I think it's just authentic. I mean, you said you filmed some of it in Belgrade. Was it all in Belgrade? It looked like real locations, or were there sets as well?
Well, we shot the whole thing in Belgrade, but some of it was in a studio So most of the indoor, like anything that takes place in one of the flats was sets.
Yeah.
But we were in some incredible locations, and you would sort of think that a lot of it, or that most of it was CGI, but there wasn't that much.
No.
That, I mean, a lot of it was just as it was. And that's why Belgrade is such a great location to film, because you've got the old part of town, old Belgrade, which is very European and can stand in for a lot of European cities. But then you've got New Belgrade, which was sort of a Tito 70s thing. And that is a concrete jungle. And that looks very dystopian because there's very little green. It's all, you know, gray concrete. So it can really easily stand in for kind of a more bleak look. So we could film the whole thing there.
Oh, it worked. I mean, it really did work. It was so authentic. Do you think having a female director helped the mother-daughter relationship develop so much on screen?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, as long as the director is good at what they do, I'll happily work with the director. But it, like, the fact that a female director was attached to the project was definitely something that drew me to it in the first place. And yeah, it just felt like a very female-focused film because it was led by a woman, and then 2 women are the lead characters in it. So yeah, definitely, we were sort of like a triad, I guess. And yeah, it definitely helped to lend the film a very sort of authentic female experience, I guess. So, yes.
A couple more questions before we wrap up. What is your procedure before a scene or an act? Do you stop and have your time to yourself? Do you listen to music? What is it that you do before you prep and the cameras roll? Anything in particular?
It depends on what kind of a scene it is. If it's a very heavily emotional scene, then yeah, I will have to, then I sort of won't talk much to other people, especially not like small talk, or I'll try and kind of joke around with people.
Yeah.
And I do have a playlist on my phone. It's just titled Sad. And it's full of sad songs that make me sad.
And that'll make you cry on demand?
Do you know what? Crying on demand is such a stupid thing, and I hate it, and it's really hard, and I hate actors, but I'm also really jealous of actors who can just do it. I mean, there are some actors like, well, Jennifer Lawrence comes to mind right away. But yeah, just people who have an amazing connection to their emotions, and they can just think of something sad and immediately they're crying. I'm definitely not like that. So I need a bit more time. They can, like, you know, and then once you kind of stay in that mode, it's then easier to go there. So, but you have to just make sure that you're staying in that mode and not having banter with the crew outside of the scenes.
Yeah, sure.
Because yeah, like, even though in a lot of ways Annalyn was very close to me, and especially how I was when I was a teenager.
Okay.
There was still, I guess she wasn't completely me, so I couldn't just go straight into it. And she was going through something and going through things that I have never had to face myself. So there was a lot of time that I had to take before those scenes, definitely. If it's more of a comedy, light-hearted scene, I suppose it actually helps if you have a bit of banter before, because then you're in that mode. You're already in that, you know, ping pong kind of. Yeah, exactly. So there I actually, so during the rom-com, I found it quite helpful to kind of keep the comedy rolling between takes. So yeah.
Well, as a movie analyst, a journalist, film critic, there was 2 scenes in particular. There was one where you dropped to the floor, but you had your back to the camera, so I couldn't see you, and you were really sad. So I don't know whether you were actually really crying or it was ADR. And the other one, and there was other times where you were looking at the boat for the first time. Spoiler alert, there is a boat in this movie. And your eyes were like so wide. I was believing every minute. So you're obviously really dedicated to this role.
I was, yeah. It was my first lead role.
Yeah.
So I was, so keen to just
impress
put 100% of my energy and personality and everything into it. I was definitely dedicated to, first of all, just being a professional actor, which requires that you know your lines and you know the script and you know where you are, because we shoot out of order. That it requires that you know where you are in the story, but also just to really throw myself into it and not pull any punches, kind of, I guess. But that all the crying was real crying. Yeah, there was no CG tears, thankfully.
Did you have like an earpod in listening to your sad songs, or was it just you did it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you kind of just you have to bring it on the day. And the boat, there was actually a boat, so I could see it, and that really helps. It helps if you're not surrounded by a green screen and you have to imagine everything. It helps when you're on top of a cliff and you can actually see a boat. So yeah, it does. A lot of the stuff I felt, there was obviously I was acting, but because the locations were so stunning, a lot of the time there was in some way no acting required, because the surrounding did a lot of the acting for us. And because you were in these incredible locations, that automatically had an effect on how you were feeling. So a lot of that was a real privilege, actually, that we could film in these incredible locations that that we got on the budget that we were on, which was amazing.
Yeah, some movies, low budget films, slip through the cracks. So I hope this one doesn't. In Australia, it's available to watch on demand and streaming and on DVD. Like, people still do buy physical media, which is cool. Yeah, well, some people do. So in Australia, at least, there are still shops where you can go in and still buy Blu-rays and DVDs, by the way.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, I know, because we, here we can as well. I don't have a DVD player anymore. So I actually won't be able to watch my own film if I have it on DVD. Maybe I should buy a DVD player just so that, just in case. Although, like I said, I hate watching myself. So I watched it. I also watched it twice. I watched it once at home just to kind of make sure that I wasn't horrible in it. And then there was a little screening in London at a sci-fi festival kind of thing.
And you attended? Yeah.
I attended it, yeah. Funnily enough, the sci-fi festival was also showing a film by Claudia Black, or that Claudia Black was in. What was it called? The Void or something. Yeah. So I was really hoping that I would see her there, but she didn't come. So it's sad.
There's these connections here. Eventually you'll meet her and maybe even work with her. Who knows?
I hope so. Oh my God, I hope so. I hope so. Yeah. In
your own words, please describe to me The Deal. Why should people watch it? Just briefly, what is it that it means so much to you, other than being your first lead role? But why should people watch it? Because there are so many other things to choose from.
For sure, yeah. I would say one of three of the most interesting things about The Deal is that it's about a mother and daughter.
Yeah.
And the mother and the daughter are the lead roles, and you follow them throughout the film. And it's sort of like a road movie, but with two women. And that I was really struggling to find another film that was specifically about a mother-daughter relationship. So that's quite novel. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people. And people who have already seen it have told me that that is something that they really rated and enjoyed about it.
Yeah,
it's obviously, it's sci-fi dystopia. People love sci-fi dystopia. So if you're into sci-fi and dystopic stories, you should definitely watch it. It has some really germane themes, like, the lack of resources and what the state tries to do to handle that. There's the control and the trying to isolate your population from the outside world to kind of keep them under control, lack of information, all of that. It was, we shot it pre-pandemic, but it's about a pandemic and what happens after a pandemic. So it has so many themes that are quite relevant and germane to what we're going through right now. So I think people will enjoy it. or I hope so.
Well, that's funny you should say that you filmed it pre-pandemic, because yeah, the virus themes are in the film, but you go beyond that because it's a little bit more. There's layers to this film, and it has like 3 different sort of segments and stanzas. The finale's great, and like I said, it's a great surprise.
Good. I'm glad you didn't see it coming.
Yeah. And what's next for you? Anything you can tell me about? Anything you're working on? Some projects? Are you doing a musical? Maybe you're going to be dancing, utilizing your dancing skills.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, God, I would love to do a musical, but
musicals are back.
I would love to, but I don't think my singing voice is good enough, really. And even my dancing is probably not good enough anymore. So we'll see. But nothing in the pipeline for the future, but obviously this other film is coming out as well. I think that one's coming out end of November, beginning of December-ish. Okay. So I'm actually doing ADR for that later on this afternoon. So I've got a busy day. Yeah.
Well, if nothing else, I will be watching that film and hopefully endorsing it around February for Valentine's Day, if it's perfect for that.
Oh my God, that is perfect. Yes. That would be awesome.
I'm a hopeless romantic, and I love Julia Roberts and Cameron Diaz, and those sort of actors. Yeah. And I hope that you never know, you might go to those heights. Hopefully.
Yeah. Oh God, I mean, if I could reach the heights of Julia Roberts, I can die happy. Obviously, yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome, Shane. It was lovely to meet you.